Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 17 of the Vuelta España, 160 kilometers, about 100 miles in length. And what you really want to focus on, of course, is going to be the last climb on today's stage, because at 10 kilometers, 5.5%, it looks like it's not so hard when you hear 5.5%, but really when you look at the second half, the last 4 or 5 kilometers, they're more like 7 and 8 and reaching up to sections of 10% on today's finishing mountain summit climb here on stage 17 of the Vuelta España. Now, there was some bad news after yesterday's stage 16. We saw Primož Roglic just put on a historic, dominating display with 3 kilometers to go and light the field up, and then we saw a spectacular crash. Now, he's not going to start because of that crash. Sounds like he doesn't have any broken bones or a concussion, but they say he's beat up and incredibly sore, so their director sportif, Andy Engels, says he's not going to start today's stage. Now, it's been a rough season for Primož Roglic, no doubt. Remember, he had the knee problem at the Basque Country, crashed out of the Tour de France, but first went incredibly deep on that stage 11 to alter this year's Tour de France completely after we saw Tadej Pogačar bonk on that last stage and fall apart on that last climb. And then, of course, Jonas Vingegaard from Jumbo-Visma went on to win his first Tour de France victory. As a couple stages later, Primož Roglic went home. Now, he got here at the Vuelta España. We saw a spectacular team time trial from Team Ineos. We saw changing of the jerseys throughout the first 3-4 stages of this year's Vuelta España. And then we saw stage 4 win from Primož Roglic. After that, they all went flat. Jumbo-Visma started to drop in form. And we started Primož Roglic coming back to form. Not a bad individual time trial. It was pretty solid, really. Just lost some time to Remco Evenepoel, the race leader here at the Vuelta España. But then we've seen Primož Roglic coming back. Now, this has been the MO. He's had a bad season and bad luck throughout this 2022 season. But it seems like Primož Roglic seems to have this bad luck aura around him oftentimes. But it was a big hit to us fans sitting on the couch, and of course to Primož Roglic, his family, and Jumbo-Visma in general, with Primož Roglic leaving this year's Vuelta España. Now, for Jumbo-Visma, remember, they won that team time trial, won the stage of 4 with Primož Roglic, so they still have had an absolutely stellar Vuelta España here in 2022. But it's a sad sight when you know Primož Roglic is no longer going to be in the race here at the Vuelta España. The number 2 best rider in the world, Primož Roglic, leaving the Vuelta. So that's the sad news when we start today's stage. Once the cameras come on, it's 85 kilometers to go. It's a breakaway of 13 riders up here, and they have 3.5 minutes. Now, today's stage must have been spectacular, the first 80 kilometers of the stage anyways, because the racing has been intense, and the average speed is 48 kilometers an hour for the first half of this course. Now, we see back there in the peloton chasing, it's quick step. They're not going to get any help throughout today's stage. And I kind of thought that was a little bit strange. Thought we might see a little bit of Astana for Lopez because it's a finishing climb and it's 10 kilometers long. And the last 5K, like I said, are pretty steep at around 7 and 8% all the way to the line. They'll get no help back there, so Quick Step will just allow this gap to these 13 riders to just keep extending throughout the stage. Now, there's going to be a crash, and Juan Ayuso, will see him at the medical car early when the cameras first come on. The crash was before the cameras come on, so we don't know exactly what happened, but he had a little bit of injury. We see him back there with the medical car, and then he'll get back up to the peloton. Once we get up to the feed zone, we're going to see another crash, and it's going to be from Bike Exchange Caden Gross. My best educated guess is he got a feed bag put into his front wheel and crashed hard, because we see all the Swan years around him, and later we're going to see the mechanic there switching bikes with him, and then Caden Groves will get on his bike and get back up in the peloton. Now we start seeing the action come thick and heavy once we get to about 32 kilometers to go, because Larson Craddock, the American rider from Bike Exchange, up in this front group of 13, he's going to throw an attack. Only thing is, though, today, no one's going to fall for it. No one goes with the American rider, so he pulls the plug and bandits. Intelligent choice right now. Now, we see those 13 riders still riding together pretty smooth from after that first attack from Larson Craddock. And then we're going to see another attack with about 18 kilometers to go. And the American rider throwing in another one again. He's got Quinton Pashier going with him from FDJ and Bob Jungels from AG2R. Those 3 riders are drilling it, going through the narrow streets of the little village here, just going full gas. And we see the guys behind chasing full gas, and they'll catch those guys just as they're exiting the village here. And then all of a sudden we see attack by Marc Soler from UAE Team Emirates. That's brought back quickly, and then guess what? The American rider Larson Craddock goes on another attack with about 15 kilometers to go, and nobody follows it. So with the American rider up the road from Bike Exchange, he's throwing in everything into the pedals, trying to get some time on the 12 riders chasing him. Behind, we won't see a whole lot of action from this group of 12. They'll work somewhat together, not perfectly, but together until we start getting up to the climb with 10 kilometers to go. Now, once we start getting into the climb proper, let's back the film up just a little bit, because before the peloton comes into the climb, remember, they're 7.5 minutes behind the front group of 13 right now. So the peloton are fighting to come into this last climb with 10 kilometers to go. As we see, there's groups on each side. We got Ineos pulling on the right and Movistar pulling on the left. They'll end up blending together, and when the GC favorites back there in the peloton start to climb, it's Ineos on the front drilling it. Won't take too much longer before Movistar get up there and take control at the beginning of the climb. Now let's go back up to the breakaway, because there's some action happening up there as we start seeing the first attacks coming into play. Arceus Slamsix, Elie Gilbert throw an attack with Quentin Pacher, and then we start seeing Rigoberto Uran from EF Education bridging across. Once he gets up there, we start seeing a reshuffling, because the pictures go back to the peloton and then come back up to the front break, and Elie Gilbert is gone, but replaced him is Quentin Pacher. Quentin Pacher from FDJ is on some flying form, and he's trying to win today's stage 17 of the Vuelta a España. Now again, the cameras go back to the peloton again to see Team Ineos on the front. When it comes back, we see Marc Soler has made it up to the front group. If I back the film up just a little bit further to about 7 kilometers to go, you'll see Marc Soler. He was at the back of the group playing Marc Soler games throughout the beginning of this climb. Always at the back, always staying on the wheels of riders, but not doing any work and not getting his face up into the wind. But now he's found himself up into the front group. Be one other rider up that comes up there. It's Cofidis Herrada. Jesus Herrada makes it up there. And then Kenny Elissonde comes out of nowhere and into the picture. With Kenny Elissonde in that front group, that's going to make 6 riders up there with just under 2.5 kilometers to go. And when we look at the American up there from Lawson Craddock, he's got about a 13-15 second gap, and now he's hoping that there's going to be games back there played left and right if he's got any chance of winning here on stage 17 of the Vuelta a España. We go back, and now it's Soler attacking with 2 kilometers to go. Rigoberto Uran is directly on his wheel, and the gap's at about 15 seconds. Soler's drilling it, but it'll come back as he sits up, and then we still get the group coming all back together. We're losing Kenny Elissonde many times as all the accelerations from the break back there are going fast, and Kenny Elisonde's coming off and then finding his way back on for the Trek Segafredo team. Now, back when we start looking at the peloton with 1.5 kilometers to go, it's 3 Quick-Step riders on the front, so Remco Evenepoel is protected at this point in time in the race with just about 1.5 kilometers to go, plus the 7 minutes that they got to gain, because the breakaway marker is what we're looking at when we look at the peloton. Now we go back up front. Rigoberto's attacking with Herrada, and Soler's chasing just behind. They'll catch Larson Craddock from Bike Exchange with 1.1 kilometer to go. The American rider put in a stellar ride, but he just didn't have the legs to quite go all the way to the distance. Now, with that slowing of the group, we're going to see the 2 riders, Clement and Pacher, they'll get back on. Kenny Elissonde's way back there in the picture trying to get back on for Trek Segafredo, so he got a shot at winning stage 17 here of the Vuelta a España, but we won't see him make it back up to that front group. With that, all of a sudden, the next attack is Clement. We see Herrada chasing, and then at 850 meters to go, Herrada's going to pass Clement Champusson and throw in his own attack. At 800 meters to go, it's Rigoberto Uran trying to bridge across up to Herrada. We see when we look over at the picture, it's Soler looking over at Rigoberto Uran, and then Rigoberto Uran will look back at Soler. He'll accelerate hard and he'll get up to Herrada. Then there's going to be another regrouping happening as we see Quentin Pacher and Soler bridge up. Now we got 4 riders in the front group, and with 250 meters to go, it's Rigoberto Uran that throws down on the pedals. It's coming into a bend all the way to the finish of today's stage. Harada's sitting there, and Soler's just starting to come off the back. We look up with 75 meters to go. All of a sudden, Rigoberto Uran still accelerating. He's putting in the last big effort trying to win stage 17 of the Vuelta a España. 25 meters to go. Rigoberto Uran's got stage 17 of the Vuelta a España won here. Wrapped up for EF Education. Now the camera guy, we see him fall. He goes down, his hand goes down. We see the sunglasses in the picture. Then the screen goes green, and now we're going back to the GC chase. Because remember, they're about 5-6 minutes back behind this front group that just crossed the line. We see up front, it's Moss throwing in the first attack. It's the big attack of the day, and we see Remco Evenepoel's got it covered, no problem. There'll be another attack there from Moss that Remco Evenepoel can cover, and then we'll see Almeida with about 1.5 kilometers to go from UAE Team Emirates. He throws in attack. See a little bit of tempo being set at this point in time from Remco Evenepoel, and our Ensman DSM rider, he's the big casualty in the top 10 of the general classification as the DSM rider's coming out the back. We look up there behind Remco Evenepoel. He's got 7 riders on his wheel, and it's the FDJ rider, Thibaut Pinot. That's the big surprise up here. He's not in the top 10, but he's found some form for FDJ. I don't know what he's doing up here, but he's putting on a show, hanging on for dear life, but he's still in the top 10 here of the Vuelta a España on stage 17. Now, as we see Almeida's time start to grow, all of a sudden Lopez from Astana starts to panic. He'll get on the front and set in a little bit of tempo, and then with about a kilometer to go, we're going to see the attack from Ayuso, UAE Team Emirates, that's throwing in, trying to gain some time on the general classification favorites. And remember, it's his teammate Almeida up the road from UAE Team Emirates. With the attack from Ayuso, it's covered directly by Remco Evenepoel and, of course, Moss, who has good form here from Movistar. They'll cover that right away, and that move will get brought back. With that happening, all of a sudden, Remco Evenepoel says, okay, I'm going to get on the front and just set some tempo because this race is almost over, and I got some great form. So Remco Evenepoel will get on the front, protecting his GC classification here at first place at the Vuelta a España, riding tempo on the front. Up front, just in front of him, would be Almeida, and Almeida's still going solo. He'll cross the line, and then we'll see a big acceleration after already riding the front from Remco Evenepoel to blow the GC favorites up with just a few hundred meters to go. He'll cross the line with Moss directly on his wheel. They'll lose about 9-10 seconds to Almeida, but that's no big deal. When you look back at all the other groups that back there chasing, though, you see some guys hurting, but guess what? The 19-year-old Ayuso from UAE Team Emirates will cross the line, only losing about 2 seconds to Remco Evenepoel. Then Lopez is back another 2 or 3 seconds. We'll see Ben O'Connor back there. He loses about 15 seconds on the GC. A big shuffle in the top 10 when you take out Primoz Roglic from second. Everyone's going to move up, but it's Rigoberto Uran from EF Education that'll move himself up to 9th on the general classification. Then everyone else will stay in their relatively same spot, just losing about 2 to 10, 15 seconds on their GC, with our Ensman from DSM losing about 50 seconds to Remco Evenepoel when the day is all said and done. Now, today's stage had more attacking than I mentioned here today. Nobody can cover all of the attacks, so you got to go back and watch probably about the last 15 kilometers of today's stage if you really want to enjoy the stage proper. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next edition of the Butterfly Effect because it's another mountain stage tomorrow. And when we looked at all the interviews after the stage, Remco Evenepoel thought that tomorrow's mountain stage was probably going to be easier than today's finish, even though it's a higher rated category at a category 1. Now we look at the other interviews from Movistar's Moss. At the end, they were talking about whether or not if he saw anybody suffering out there. And of course, Moss gives a little smile and he said, I saw some suffering out there. And then of course, that means he looks good for tomorrow, stage 18 of the Vuelta a España. Ayuso from UAE Team Emirates, everybody's already patting him on the back for being a third place finisher here at the Vuelta a España when it's all said and done. And he says, hey guys, I don't have it just yet. I still got some more riding to do. And we got a hard Vuelta final mountain stages here coming up. So just like I tell you guys every day, like and subscribe because this is 2022 and we know the bike racing is going to be big and intense. And Remco Evenepoel's on fantastic form. Do you really want to miss seeing the Belgium kid, 22 years old only, win the Vuelta a España? Not at all. So make sure you like and subscribe and I'll see you on the next edition of the Butterfly Effect.